can do. All they can do is alert you. Is someone sending a flare? And is anyone noticing it? Most people in the business community seem to be dismissing this, which may be the right thing to do. I don't know. But is it possible the DoD feels we are close to this end game and they are nudging the media to do more, or maybe nudging you to prepare? All he is saying in this report basically is, we found box cutters on a plane and they shouldn't be there. Shouldn't we pick up the ball? I found it interesting that Ben Bernanke is now coming out and warning on the next thing really to approach Congress, the debt ceiling, and the issue of the long-term federal deficits. He says, quote, "It is extremely important that you address this issue. I'm just worried about using the debt limit as a vehicle." The debt limit, the debt ceiling, is expected to reach its limit as soon as April 15th. The clock is ticking. Congress needs to raise the debt ceiling. If we don't, it means we default. Now, we can argue back and forth about whether or not we do that, but is anyone talking about the consequences? Bernanke is now saying that just by giving the impression that we may not raise the debt ceiling, it could cause a run to cash out on our Treasury bonds. I found this today on the Business Insider, and I want to show you this. Who will buy our treasuries when the Fed stops? The Federal Reserve. Remember, they said they'll never monetize our debt. They'll never buy them all up. This is the way it was when they were saying that. The Fed bought 10%. You and I, the rest of us, bought 40%, and 50% were bought by sovereign funds. Look how it is now. Try this. This is the source, the Federal Reserve. Foreign buying 30% of our debt. The Fed is buying 70% of our debt. Let me ask you, if you spook the markets or the world, who's going to buy that? The Fed now says they're going to stop buying our debt. How? Who's going to replace it? There's no demand for it. On top of that, what happens if foreigners start to sense problems and they start selling sovereign funds? Or if this report is right and one country wants to sell our treasuries because it's lights out and they know it. It's the perfect storm. If this report is true, terrorists, and I want you to understand, did not cause the financial crisis. We did, all of us. But they just pushed it to make it worse. Well, I got news for you. Just the financial and the debt and the trust in our government is already Armageddon. The melting down by itself is a huge problem that we all have to deal with. But if this report is true, you better hope Jesus splits the mountain financially, because that'll be the only thing that'll save us. And wouldn't it provide the perfect cover for any foreign nation or enemy to clean our clock without leaving any fingerprints? Because it's natural. Or is it? It is the perfect cover to hide a sovereign fund dump. Now, this theory would be a lot more difficult to believe if it were 3 years ago, when I said they'll stop buying our debt at some point, and they'll change the dollar, and they'll dump the dollar. And everybody said that was lunacy. Well, not anymore. How many people are standing up and saying they don't want the reserve currency of the world to be the U.S. dollar? Well, only Russia, China, the IMF, and the UN. They're all calling for an end to the dollar. Reuters has reported China PLA officers, this is their military, who's named in this report. The Chinese military officers urge economic punch against the U.S. Quote, senior Chinese military officers have proposed to possibly sell some U.S. bonds to punish Washington for its latest round of arms sales to Taiwan. Even the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that the reign of the dollar is over. It is. The question is, will it go down gently, or will it be punched down? If you think about this as a pure dollars and common sense perspective, we're not a good buy anymore in America, and it's making more and more sense for the world to dump our dollar. You should do everything you can to prepare. Was the '08 collapse fueled by a financial terrorist attack? I don't know. Honestly, I don't care. I am concerned that no one in the media is picking up this ball and running with it. The Pentagon is taking this threat seriously. This is the part that I do care about today. We should take it seriously ourselves. 2 years ago, I was on a cable channel that nobody was watching at the time, doing a show that nobody was watching. And I was about to leave television. And then I had the opportunity to come and work here. If you're going to do news or commentary, the only place, I think in the world, the only place that really makes an impact is Fox. When I first came here, I had this pie-in-the-sky belief that if I told you the truth, if I verified all of my facts and double-checked, and we could make that compelling case with facts to back it up, the journalists in other places would get curious, and they'd use their resources, and they'd investigate, and they'd prove it right, and they'd show it too. Yeah. Well, we've done our part of the bargain. I've only had to retract one major mistake on this program in 2 years, and that's when I said that Van Jones was a convicted felon. We corrected it. He's not. He just spent some time in jail, or he was arrested. On the rare days when I don't feel the media is an accomplice to those who want to destroy America, I think that maybe the reason they're not covering stories like this is because they believe their audience doesn't want to think about it, or won't understand it, or doesn't have the attention span for it. I think you do want to know about it. I think you will look at it. I think you do have the attention span, and you can understand it. There is a perfect storm. And in a storm, you batten down the hatches, you gather your family and preserve what's important. And you have food, and you have shelter. You have to figure it out. You have to do the work, because I don't think anybody else will. Because the rest of the media, oh, they're just too concerned about the latest tweet from Charlie Sheen. You got to start paying attention to things that matter. Or, you know, it's not going to be Charlie Sheen saying, boom, winning. It could be just boom. I want to give you another story that I think the media is getting wrong here, and it's about gas prices. You know that the gas prices, well, I think you do if you go get gas, have gone up more than 20 cents in the last 8 days. The national average now is $3.38 a gallon. It'd be nice to know why and what's coming, but instead we're getting that fact, and then, hey, Charlie Sheen just tweeted a pic of him and a really hot porn star. I wonder what he'll do next. Find out tonight. Libya is getting worse. Gaddafi is in some strange sort of denial of violence. Violence? What violence? They love me here. Right. Gas prices spiked today when they were shelling 2 miles away from an oil station. Got it? Saudi Arabia hasn't helped matters. They have reports that they have sent dozens of armored vehicles into Bahrain, which they have to do to protect our assets. And then they also arrested a cleric today, which set the markets on fire. Now, those are just a couple of reasons for the oil futures skyrocketing up to $102 a barrel today. But hey, don't pay any attention to that. And don't pay attention to WikiLeaks either. Here's where the media always goes wrong. They look at everything disconnected. And then they say, oh, you connect these stories, you're crazy. Really? Let's take the WikiLeaks story and then also tie them together with what's happening in the Middle East. If they would do that, it might show a larger picture. Here are the WikiLeaks, the countries WikiLeaks reporting on here. In Egypt, WikiLeaks leaked cables that were embarrassing to President Mubarak. About 2 months later, rioting starts and Egypt flips. Tunisia, they have leaked cables here on Tunisia that expose corruption of the president's family. Tunisia was flipped January 14th. It was actually, this was first, then this one. Same thing, Yemen, December 3rd. Cables leaked revealed America's deep military involvement with the country. Yemen is currently on the brink. Libya, they leaked cables showing Libya placed billions of dollars in U.S. banks. Libya currently on fire. And the latest leak happened on Monday. And this is the one that bothered me because I've noticed this pattern. And it's not when they leaked it, it's when it goes viral in the country, when it starts to penetrate the country. On Monday, WikiLeaks released a cable from the Saudi royal family's wealth. It took a look at what's going on there, revealing the over-the-top spending and the money-making schemes the royals have used to finance their lavish lifestyles. Now, when that becomes viral, how is that going to go over? And then there's one more thing. Now, I haven't heard anybody mention the map. Can you take a look at the map here? Here are the countries that have either fallen or on the brink of falling. Are there no war gamers out there? Is there nobody that watched old cowboy movies here? Here's Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Syria. Jordan is on fire. This is Israel. They're going to be surrounded with nothing. Jordan. This is Iraq. This is Iran. Here's Qatar on fire. Here is Bahrain right here. Oman just started. Yemen. Got it? If you're a war gamer, may I ask, isn't this Custer's last stand? By the way, Iraq is also on fire. If this falls, it is the end of the Western way of life. $200 a barrel, $10 a gallon gasoline. But that isn't actually what keeps me awake at night. It's this, Iraq. Iraq. Is anyone asking the question, what happens to our troops? What happens to our troops if they take Bahrain? If they take Saudi Arabia? How do our troops even get out? If they take Bahrain, they're cut off. If they take Saudi Arabia, then what happens? The other night, Brian Williams said on Letterman, if Saudi Arabia falls, we're headed for a global recession. I'm taking a step further. Yeah, would it be nice if it was a global recession? Can somebody ask, how do we get our troops home? How do we protect our troops? See, you surround your enemy first, and then you squeeze them until they pop. Syria, Iran, Saudi Arabia. Common sense says it's only a matter of time or of force. If you look right across from Saudi Arabia, our troops. Wouldn't it be nice if someone else was kept awake at night besides you on these things? You remember when I said you should invest in hard goods and everything else? I heard another report today, and it was tied to Saudi Arabia, at least in my head. They're talking about the price of oil. And then I heard something else, that copper was going down. Well, why? Why would this happen? Because copper is used in home building. It's used when you think the economy is going to be expanding around the world. Last month, copper took a nosedive. You sell it when there's no productivity or when you're worried that there won't be productivity. Never take investment advice from me. I'll just tell you what I do personally, and then you do with it what you will. Food. Food. As the perfect storm approaches, just make sure that your hatches have been battened down and you can be a shelter for someone else.